Hello and welcome to the introduction for this course. What you should know before you take the course: you should have a basic working knowledge of Python, basic working knowledge of Django, and a basic working knowledge of PostgreSQL. If you have not got basic working knowledge of these, you can still follow along. So if you're an absolute beginner, it's still okay, because the application we're going to build is simple enough for you to follow along. Who should take the course? The course is designed for beginners to Python and Django and beginners to PostgreSQL. However, if you have got some basic working knowledge, it's still suitable for you. What will you learn on the course? We'll start off by installing Python and setting up our database system using PostgreSQL database server. We will create a virtual environment for our project. We will create database. We will connect the database to the web application we are creating. We'll create a model for the database. We will run the migrations for that model. We will create views that will enable us to view the database objects in our application. We will set up the URL pattern that will be used to pull the data from the database. We will learn how to add Bootstrap to our template. We will learn how to display objects from the database in our web application. We'll also learn how to use static files. The course duration is 4.5 hours long and the format is video based. To check if Python is installed on your computer, you need to open up the command prompt and type in the following command, which is Python space -- version. I have got my command prompt open, so I'm going to type in the command Python space -- version, and then you press enter. You should get this message displayed saying Python is not recognized as an internal or external command. This proves that you haven't got Python installed. So I'm just going to exit out of this command prompt by clicking on the X, and we have the website for Python. So this is the official website to download Python. The link is displayed on the screen. That will give you access to the download page of Python. So click on the downloads tab, which is this tab here, and the current version as of the time I am recording this video is Python 3.72. Next, you can click on the button that says Python 3.72 to begin the download. So click on that and the download should begin. So you can see the download here on the bottom left hand corner of the screen. So we'll give that a few minutes to complete the download. The next thing we're going to do is install Python from the downloaded file. To begin the installation, on the bottom left hand corner is the downloaded file. Just click on it to run the Python installation and you'll be presented with this screen. I'm just going to minimize the other screen so we can see the installation screen properly. The setup screen provides some information as to where Python is going to be installed, which it tells you this is where it's going to be installed for me. And it also tells you what else is going to be installed. So it says it's going to install idle and it's going to install pip. Next, on the bottom here, we've got a box that says add Python 3.72 path. Make sure you click inside that box to make it checked. And then once you've got that box checked, click on this install now button to begin the installation. So click and that should start the installation. Once the installation is finished, you will get the message saying setup was successful. You can just click to close the setup box. Next thing we want to do is check that Python is installed. To check that we have definitely got Python installed, we need to type in the following command inside the command prompt. So you type in Python space, you do -- version, and then you press enter, and that gives you the current version of Python. You can see it displays version 3.72. So this concludes this video on the download and installation of Python. By default, Python comes pre-installed with all Macs, but the version is quite old. So it comes pre-installed with version 2.7. The current versions of Python being used is Python 3x. So let's open up our terminal to check the version of Python that we have installed. So this is my terminal. So you type in Python, you do a space, -- version, and press enter, and that gives you the current version installed on your Mac. So this is a version that comes pre-installed. It is possible to have both version 2 and 3 installed, so version 2 and 3 can coexist on the same machine. So let's go over to the official Python website and download Python version 3x. X meaning the current version. As of the time of recording this video, the current version of Python, if you go to downloads, it gives you the current version. So the current version is 3.7.2. all right, so to begin the download, just click on the button and it will just drop the download in the download folder. We give it a few minutes to complete. You can see it here, it's downloading. So once that blue bar is completed, we know that it has completed the download. So just give it a few minutes to complete. So once the download is completed, you can see here it gives you a little brown box on the bottom. Just click on the brown box and it shows you what's in there, which is a PKG file. So it tells you open in Finder. So click this to open it in Finder. Now this is what was downloaded. So just double click on it and that will launch the installer. So I'm just going to minimize everything else so that we can have access to the installer screen. So feel free to read through what's on the screen. Click continue. You can scroll through and read through all this. It just gives you some important information about the version. Click continue and you can check out the history and the license if you got time to do that. Otherwise, click continue and you need to agree to the license agreements before you can progress with the installation. So click agree and click install. It will prompt you for your password. So enter your password and click install. And you can see here it started the installation. So I'm just gonna give it a few minutes to complete the installation. Installation is complete. So these are all the stuff that it basically installs. So when you install Python, it also installs all this, the idle and everything else. So I'm just going to exit that at the moment. It's just telling you what it has installed. And then here it tells you the installation was completed successfully. Congratulations, Python 3.7.2 for Mac OS 10.9 or later was successfully installed. So feel free to close the box and it tells you here, do you want to move the Python installer to the trash now that we've completed? I would say yes, move to trash because we've done the installation. Next thing is to open up the terminal and let's check for the version of Python. So to check the version of Python that we have installed, we need to type in Python 3 and do space -- version. If we typed in just Python, it will return Python 2, which we don't want. It tells me I've got Python 3.72. If we were to just type in Python and do a space -- version and press enter, it gives you version 2.7. So it's very important When you are trying to develop or create things in Python, you have to use the correct version of Python that you are referring to. For example, if I wanted to do something interactive and I typed in Python to give me the Python shell, and I can do simple maths. I'll do 6 plus 6, I press enter, it gives me the answer of 12. Now if I want to exit, this is called the Python shell. If I want to exit that, I type in exit and parentheses, press enter, and that will exit the shell. If I need to clear my screen, I type in clear, and that clears the screen. Now if I want to access Python 3 shell, I type in Python and then 3. If you notice, it tells me here Python 3.7.2. So very important to type in the correct version of Python when you are trying to develop or experiment. So again, we can do a simple math. I do 8 plus 7, it gives you 15. So we just exit, type in exit and then the parentheses, and that will exit the Python shell. So this concludes the installation of Python 3 on a Mac. Thanks very much. If you had any problems during the installation, please feel free to let me know. I'll be more than happy to help out. Thanks and bye for now. In this video, we are going to download and install the Atom text editor. What is Atom? Atom is a free, open source and modern text editor. By open source, I mean its source code is open for developers to contribute in making it better. The Atom text editor is cross-platform. That means it will work across multiple platforms like Windows and also a Mac. The functionality of the Atom text editor can be extended by installing various types of extensions. You can download Atom from this link, which is atom.io. The link takes you to the homepage of the Atom text editor, where you can download and learn more about the text editor. This is the homepage of the Atom text editor. To download, there should be a download button. Here you go. Depending on your operating system, if you're running a Mac, it will present you with the relevant download button. I'm running a Windows, so I'm going to click on this to begin my download. So that's the download there. I'm going to give it a couple of minutes to finish downloading. Then I'll run the installation files. The files are finished downloading, so I'm just going to double click to run the Atom setup file. So click, and it's trying to prepare the files for installation. We'll just give it a few minutes to get, there you go, it's trying to launch. So what's happening is the editor has been installed at the moment. You can see it tells you here Atom is being installed, and it will launch once the installation is completed. Once the installation is completed, it automatically also launches the text editor, and this is the default screen that you are presented with when you first install the editor. So you've got different options here. You can, for now, it tells you here that Atom is not currently set as your default handler. You can skip that and go back to it later. So just click on X. So this is the default screen, and in this palette here, if you wanted to extend the functionality of Atom by installing different packages or extensions, this is where you will go. So you got an option here to install a package. Atom has several packages or extensions that you can use to extend its functionality. As you begin to use the editor, you may come across useful extensions or packages that others have used, and you may want to install it yourself, and this is where you go to install that. If you want to choose a theme, if you don't like the default theme, you click on this button to change it. And if you want to integrate with GitHub, it integrates nicely, GitHub and Git, which is a version control system. And if you want to open a new project, there's a tab here to open up a new project. So that's it for the installation of the Atom text editor. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. In this video, I'll be showing you how to install PostgreSQL on your local system. Postgres was developed for Unix-like platforms. However, it has been designed to be portable. What that means is that it can run on multiple platforms such as Mac OS, Solaris, and Windows. I will be illustrating by installing Postgres on a Windows-based platform. Let's take a look at the steps that we are going to follow to complete the installation of PostgreSQL. So we are going to start off by downloading PostgreSQL installer for Windows. If you're installing on Windows, you do that via an installer. So once we've downloaded it, we'll then install PostgreSQL and we'll then verify the installation. If you are running Windows 8 or Windows 10, you will need to install PostgreSQL on an account that has administrative privileges. So let's begin by downloading the PostgreSQL installer for Windows, and the link is displayed on the screen. So if you head over to that link, and then we can begin the download of the installer. So once you've navigated to the installer download page, there is a link that says download the installer certified by Enterprise DB for all supported PostgreSQL versions. So click on the link and select. There should be an option here for cookies. You can click OK to agree, and then you select your version. Select the latest version that you can see. The latest version is usually displayed on top. As of the time of recording this video, the version is 10.5, so I'm going to click on that. And next you got to select your operating system. So I'm going to click on the drop down and select my operating system. I am running a Windows 64-bit, so I click on that, and then you have the link to download. So just click on the download now and it will begin the download. So that's my download there. It has started. I'll just give it a few minutes to complete the download. So the download has finished. So I'm just going to double click on the link here to run the installation. You may get a user account control pop-up if you're running a Windows operating system. Just click yes to accept that, and that will allow the installation to begin. So the installation is being processed at the moment. So we just let it go through the steps for processing and initializing the application. You'll be presented with a setup wizard. So click on next, and you are presented with a default installation directory. You can accept that, or you can specify your own installation directory. I would recommend you accept the suggested location that Postgres has specified. Just click next, and then you have this select component option. So make sure you accept all the boxes that have been checked. What that means is that it will install all the options here checked: PostgreSQL Server, the PGAdmin 4, Stack Builder, Command Line Tool. Just accept all and click next, and it tells you a data directory. It has specified a data directory for you. You can either change that or accept the default. I would accept the default. Click next. Next, you are given an option for a password. So you have to provide a password for the database super user for the Postgres database. So specify a password that you can remember. So this password here that you're setting up now is going to be the password for the database super user and service account. So once you've set that up, click on next, and it's specified a port. Please select the port number the server should listen to. The server has to listen to a specific port, so you have to specify one. By default, a port 5432 has been suggested for you, please leave it as the default port and click next. And then you are asked for a database cluster if you want to set up a cluster. I would advise you leave the default, which is default local. Leave that as the default and just click next. Click next again and then click next again, and we just wait for the installation to run through. The installation may take a few minutes to complete. The installation has now completed. You can uncheck this box here for the stack builder. The stack builder basically can be used to download and install additional tools, which includes drivers and applications that will complement your PostgreSQL installation. So I've unchecked that because that is not necessary at this stage. When you're done, just click on the finish button. Let's verify the installation. There are several ways to verify the installation. For example, you can try to connect to the PostgreSQL database server from any client application, for example, PSQL or PGAdmin. However, the quickest way to verify the installation is through the PGAdmin application. So let me show you how to access that. To access the PGAdmin application, you do that from the Programs menu and you click on the PostgreSQL folder. I'm just going to click to expand that. And within that, we've got this PGAdmin 4, which is an administrative tool for administering PostgreSQL database and its various objects. So click on that to launch it. The PG4 is an admin tool for managing PostgreSQL. So let's under this browser here, let's click on the plus sign, and under servers, we've got PostgreSQL 10. Click on that, and it's trying to connect to the server. It says you're currently running version 3.2 of PGAdmin. However, the current version is 3.3. Please click here for more information if you want to do that. So let's expand the server. You can click to update it if you wish, but I'm just going to exit out of that for now. And you can notice here it's giving you option to enter the password. So this would have been the password that you would have entered when you were trying to run during the installation process. So if you enter that password in there, it should let you connect to the server. You've got the option to save, but for security reasons, I don't think that's a good practice. So once you've entered that, click OK. And it says, you can see here on the bottom here, it says server connected, which means you have successfully connected and verified the installation. Once you have connected, and if everything is fine, the PGAdmin will display all the objects that belongs to the server. So if I expand where it's got databases, you'll be able to see all the various objects that belongs to the server. You can see all these are all objects, and we're able to verify that because the installation has been a success. To see the properties of each of the objects here, you can just click on the object. For example, if I click on databases, you can see it shows that this is a Postgres database. The owner is this. And then you can click on other objects as well, login groups, and so on. So that concludes the installation of PostgreSQL. So congratulations if you have successfully installed the PostgreSQL database server on your local system. If you had any problem during the installation, please feel free to let me know. I'll do my best to help. Thanks for watching, and bye for now. Hello there. In this video, I will be showing you a couple of ways to connect to a PostgreSQL database. The first is via an interactive SQL shell, which is a terminal. It's called PSQL. And the second option is by a GUI. GUI basically is a graphical user interface using the PGAdmin tool. Let's try and connect to a PostgreSQL database using the PSQL tool. The PSQL is an interactive terminal program provided by PostgreSQL. So you can do a lot with it. For example, you can execute SQL statements, you can manage database objects, and so on. So let's try and play around with the tool and connect to the database. The first thing we need to do is launch the PSQL program, and you launch that from the PostgreSQL folder. So if you expand the folder and if you scroll down, you should see the SQL shell, which is PSQL. So if you click to launch the shell, so this is the shell. So the first thing you need to do basically is provide answers in different steps just by pressing tab or enter on your keyboard. So if you press enter, it will give you the name of the database. You press enter again, it will give you the port it is listening to. You press enter again, it will give you the username. Press enter and it will prompt you for a password. So you enter the password that you specified during the installation of PostgreSQL. Once you enter the password, if it's correct, it will give you this screen, and you can see you've got the hash symbol next to the Postgres, which means it is waiting for some instructions. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to type in a very simple SQL statement to determine the version of PostgreSQL. So you just type in select and then you do a space, type in version. So make sure you wrap the version number in parentheses, opening and closing, and then you terminate it with a semicolon. Press enter. It will give you the version. So you can see here, this simple statement has given me the version of PostgreSQL. So you can see from here, this statement has returned one row. So we've successfully connected to the PostgreSQL database. To exit out of the program, all you need to do is hit Ctrl and C, and you will get a prompt asking you to terminate. Just hit yes and press enter, and that will terminate the program. So let's take a look at a second method we can use to connect to a PostgreSQL database using the PGAdmin tool. This tool is a GUI application. That means it is a graphical user interface that you can see things in a graphical way. To access the PGAdmin tool, you need to open up the PostgreSQL folder by expanding it, and you should see the PGAdmin 4 tool. Just click to launch the tool. It's an administrative tool, so give it a few minutes to fully launch. So this is what the PGAdmin tool looks like. When you launch it, you have to select an object in the tree view. This is the tree view, so you click on the plus to expand it. You can see a red cross there, which means you have not connected to the server. So if you just click on it, it will give you this pop-up box to enter your password to connect to the server. If you don't want to enter the password each time, you could click on save, but I wouldn't recommend that. It's not really a good practice, although it's okay if you're working in your own environment, but it's good to develop good practices right from the start. So I'm not going to save the password. I'm just going to enter the password I entered during the installation of the database. So I'll click OK, and you can see here it tells me the server is connected, so I can now access the database objects. You can see if I expand that, you can see all the various objects belonging to the database. We can quickly run a very basic query to test that we can communicate with the database. So in this view tree here, under databases, make sure you've got the Postgres database selected, and then under tools, click on the query tool. The query tool is where you'll execute your query. So let's type in a simple query. So I do select, I do a space, I type in version, and then wrap it around parentheses, and then I will add a semicolon. So this, if you just press this here, this little symbol that looks like a lightning bolt, and that will execute the query for you. All right, so it has now executed the query. So if you put your mouse over the output here, you can see the output that was returned, which is this text displayed there. So we've successfully been able to determine the version of the Postgres database from a very simple query. To exit the PGAdmin tool, you just click on the X and it will ask you a prompt. Are you sure you want to leave? Just say leave, and that exits the application. You can also connect to a PostgreSQL database from other applications. So any applications that supports the ODBC driver or the JDBC driver can be used to connect to a Postgres database server. In addition, if you develop an application that uses an appropriate driver, the application can connect to the PostgreSQL database server using that driver. So let me quickly explain what ODBC and JDBC is. ODBC stands for Open Database Connectivity. It is an open standard application programming interface, which is API, that is used for accessing a database. JDBC stands for Java Database Connectivity, which is an application programming interface as well, API, for programming language Java. There's a programming language called Java. So it defines how a client can access a database. So it's basically a Java-based data access technology used for Java database connectivity. In this video, you have learned how to connect to Postgres database server by using different client tools, which included PSQL and PGAdmin tool. Okay, I also briefly introduce you to ODBC and JDBC. So these are APIs that can be used to connect to Postgres database from other applications. Thanks for watching, and bye for now. What is Django? Django is a free and open source web application framework that is written in Python. Open source means that the framework is open for people to contribute to make it better. So what is a web framework? A web framework is not a programming language. It is written in a programming language, but it is not a programming language. A web framework is a set of components or tools that helps you develop websites and web apps faster and easier. With a web framework, a lot of the tools have been prepared for you, so you would not need to recreate a lot of them. There's no need to reinvent the wheels. A lot of the stuff you need, or most of the stuff you need, has already been created. So the tools are there for you to use. Django is not a programming language. It is a web framework and not a programming language. It is written in a programming language called Python. This is the link to the Django website, so we'll take a look and see what they say about Django. So this is the Django official website, djangoproject.com. So it tells you that Django makes it easier to build better web apps more quickly and with less code. So this is what Django has said about itself. So there's a lot of documentation here about Django on the website, so feel free to go through the documentation available. Thank you so much for your time, and bye for now. Hello and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we are going to be exploring the type of architecture that Django employs. Django uses an MVC type of architecture. MVC stands for Model, View, Controller. Django calls these pieces by different names. Django refers to them as URL patterns, views, models, and templates. So this is Django's own version of the MVC implementation. Each of these pieces has a separate role to play. For example, the URL pattern takes the path of a request and then decides, when a request comes in, it takes the path of the request and then decides which views should handle the request. Okay, so once a request comes in, it has to look at the pattern of the URL and determine which views should handle the request. The views, on the other hand, is the logic layer of the program or the app. What Pythons, they're also Python functions. They take a request and return an HTTP response. So each views, what each view can do, if each of the views can use the model we have defined in our application to query the data. So once the view queries the data via the model, it then uses the template to display the data that you can see. Alright, thank you for watching. This was a brief lecture on illustration of how Django architecture works. So basically, it's an MVC type of architecture, but broken up in 4 parts. The first is the URL patterns. When the URL patterns comes in, it passes the information based on the path to the views. The views will then go into the model. Model is a database layer, and check the relevant data and then pass the information to the template to display the data. So what you actually see, or what the user or visitor sees, is what the template displays based on the views obtained from the model. Thank you so much for your time. Take care and bye for now. Please feel free to ask any questions. Thank you. All the best. Hello and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, I will be listing some famous websites that have been built using the Django framework. The first on the list is Instagram. I'm sure a lot of you may have used or heard about Instagram. Next, we've got Pinterest. It's another famous website. These are both billion-dollar companies. We've got The Onion. You may not have heard of it, but it's slightly famous as well. Then you've got The Discuss, Mahalo, NASA. NASA is the space company. And you've got Bucket, Event or Eventbrite. You've got Mozilla Firefox. Mozilla Firefox is a web browser. And you've got the Washington Post. So these are some of the famous websites that have been built using the Django framework. There's also a website that gives you a list of sites built using the Django framework. This is a website called djangosites.org. It gives you a list of websites that have been built using the Django framework. So these are those that have been notified that this website has heard of. So at the moment, they've got 5,147 listed as built with Django. So feel free to look through them. You may see some that may pique your interest. That's it for this lecture. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this will give you some inspiration to learn Django. Bye for now. Hello and welcome to this video on what is Python. Python is a general purpose programming language. This means it can be used to write computer programs for various things like games, data science, websites, and so on. Python is also a high-level programming language. High-level programming languages mean that the languages of writing computer instructions in a way that is easily understandable and close to human language. Python is portable, which means we can run Python programs in the various different operating systems like Windows, Mac OS, Linux without any changes. Python is an interpreted language. Python is called an interpreted language because it goes through an interpreter, which turns code you write into the language understood by your computer's processor. Python is strongly typed. Strongly typed languages don't convert data from one type to another type automatically. Python has a huge set of libraries. A Python library is a collection of programs you can incorporate into your own program without writing code for them. Let's take a look at a list of application types you can create with Python. Web applications. These are applications you can access using a web browser. Android applications. These are applications that runs on Android devices like Android phones and tablets. Games. You can create various types of games with Python. Scientific applications. You can create various types of scientific applications with Python. System administration applications. So you can use Python to create applications to monitor various types of systems. You can also create console applications. A console application basically is a computer program designed to be used via a text-only computer interface. Let's take a look at a list of software applications that have been created using Python. So some of these are quite famous and popular. First on the list is YouTube, and then we have Google, we have Dropbox. This program lets you save files to a cloud-based service that you can then access from anywhere in the world. We've also got Reddit. Reddit is one of the biggest open communities on the web. You have a question you want to talk about, something in specific, or if you want to find tons of information regarding a particular topic, for example, gardening or anything, you can just look on Reddit and find related information. Next, we have Spotify. Spotify allows you to listen to ad-free music of your choice. This is a streaming service that allows you to stream music without any advertisement. Finally, we've got Instagram. Instagram is very popular. It has both an app side and also a website as well. And these are just a few list items of software that were created using Python. There are so many others, but these are just some few that you may have come across. So that is it for this video on what is Python. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Hello there. What is PostgreSQL? PostgreSQL is a general purpose and object relational database management system. It is portable. That means it can run on multiple platforms like Windows, Mac OS X, Solaris, and Unix. It was basically designed to run on Unix-like platform, but it can also run on other platforms as well. That's why it is portable. PostgreSQL is free and open source. What that means is that the source code is available under the PostgreSQL license. So it's a liberal open source license. So you're free to use, to modify, and distribute PostgreSQL in any form. PostgreSQL requires very minimum maintenance because of its stability. There are lots of companies that are using PostgreSQL. Let's take a look at some notable companies. So this is just a very brief list of some notable companies that are currently using PostgreSQL. So notable ones include Apple, we've got Skype, we've got Cisco, and many others. Hello and welcome to this lecture. What are views? A view is a Python function that takes a web request and returns a web response. So the response it returns can be an HTML content of a web page or a redirect of a 404 error. It can also be an XML document, an image, or anything. Views are used to implement the control layer or logic of a Django project or app. They usually make use of the models for creating the database, and they use the templates to help generate the HTML for the content. So the process is the URL patterns. Once a URL pattern comes in, it looks for the relevant views to process that. And once the relevant view is been determined, it dips into the database via the models and picks up the relevant data and then passes it on to the template to generate the HTML for that document. So this is a simple flow of how views are processed. On the screen is a very simple example of a view, a Python view. So let me just run through the code with you. So it begins on line 1 with the import. So we import the class called HTTP response from the Django.http module. Also import the datetime from the Python library on line 2. Next, we've defined a function called current datetime in line 4. This is the view function. Each view function takes a HTTP request object as its first parameter, and that is called a request. So it takes the HTTP request as the first parameter, and we also call that a request. When defining your functions, it's best to name your functions appropriately, closely to what you're trying to do. For example, here, this function here is defined as current_datetime. So it is self-descriptive. You know what the function is about to do. So what happens? The view will then return an HTTP response object that will contain the generated response. Each view function is responsible for returning an HTTP response object. The default Django time zone is America, Chicago. So, but you can always change this to your own time zone via the settings file. That's it for this lecture on what are views. Thank you for watching. Take care and bye for now. Hello there. In this video, I'm going to give you a brief introduction to what a URL is. What is a URL? A URL basically stands for Uniform Resource Locator. It is basically nothing more than the address of a given unique resource or resources on the web or internet. In theory, each valid URL should point to a unique resource, such as it could be a website or a page within a website, it could be images on a website, or any other resource that you're trying to get access to. Let's take a look at some basic example of a URL. This is a URL, https www.facebook.com/ that's a URL. This is also a URL because after the .com, then you have the login, and what that means is that this takes you to the login page where you can log in to Facebook. So you can have this here is known as a path. So these two here are examples of a URL. There are many more. You could have www.google.com and so on. So all those are known as a URL. Let's take a look at a basic anatomy of a URL. A URL is composed of different parts. So let's take a look at some of the basic parts. So this is a URL. I have color coded different parts of the URL so that I can explain them to you. This also is a URL. This also is a URL. So I'm going to use the color code to describe them. And on the left here, I'm going to have a key bar, kind of like a key, so that you know, like this blue here, any description I give here will match the blue part of the URL. So the blue part is known as a protocol. A protocol basically is a set of method for exchanging or transferring data around a computer network, which also includes the internet. So the way the web communicates is via the protocol called HTTP. Now you can either use HTTP or HTTPS. Notice here we have HTTPS. HTTPS is a more secured protocol than just HTTP. So let's take a look at the other parts. The part that matches this key, which is this part here, is basically known as the domain name. And what a domain name is basically the address to access a resource on the website. So the domain name basically indicates which web server is being requested. All right. So alternatively, it is possible to also directly use an IP address. An IP address is kind of like a numerical form to the same address or location. But you find that most people don't use IP address unless maybe in development. So normally you would not use an IP address to access google.com or facebook.com. You normally use the domain name. So let's take a look at another component, and the green part here, which is this part, is known as the path, which is the path to the resource on the web server. A web server basically is a computer, a giant computer somewhere on the internet that is always on 24 hours a day. It's a very powerful computer with lots of resources. So the green part here basically refers to the path to the resource you're trying to access on the web server. So if you will, it kind of represents the physical file location on the web server that contains the resource you're trying to access. And finally, the white area here, which is this one here, you would not normally use that when you're trying to access a resources. For example, if you go into facebook.com or any other relevant website, you would not type in this area here. This is a port number. It's known as the port number. Usually it is the technical gate to access the resource on the web. It's usually more useful in a development stage. So when you're developing an application, so it acts as a technical gate used to access the resources on the web server. It is usually omitted if the web server uses the standard ports of the HTTP protocol. I've used port 8000 here just as an example, but the standard port that HTTP uses is port number 80. So if the web server that contains the resources you're trying to access already uses the standard port, which is port 80, then you really do not need to specify that. So key thing to note that the standard port for HTTP is 80, and if you want to use HTTPS, the standard port is 443. So that is it for this basic anatomy of a URL. Thank you for watching. Bye for now. Hello and welcome to this lecture on the URL dispatcher. The URL dispatcher is built into Django. It's basically used to design and create clean and elegant URL scheme. There are no limitations on the framework when you use the URL dispatcher to create and design your URL scheme. No limitations at all on the framework. The Python module URL conf is what you actually use to design your URL that you will use for your apps. So in order to design the URL for your apps, you'll have to create a Python module, which is known as the URL conf, also referred to as the URL configuration. This module is Python based, it's pure Python code, and it's basically what it is. It's a simple mapping between the URL patterns, which are basically simple regular expressions, to Python functions, which are basically your views. So that's what the config does. It basically maps the URL patterns to the views. The views are also referred to as they are functions in Python. The mapping that is done from the URL pattern to the views can be short or long. It depends on your specification. The mapping can also reference other mappings. Also, because it is Python, because it is pure Python code, it is constructed dynamically.